Hello and welcome back to the ZALA Shift Podcast. I am joined here with Gemma, who is a female health coach as well, who is also trained in menopause and has been doing some incredible work raising awareness around women's health, which is obviously a really big issue and something that we really talk about a lot on this podcast. I'm really excited to have you. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, thanks Bethany for having me. I'm very excited to be on. My name's Gemma Paddington. I have been a PT for about 12 years and obviously I am also 42. So also started my own perimenopausal journey. I saw such a big gap in the market when it came for this. Bearing in mind, I train all sorts of ages. Going for it myself, I thought, do you know what? There's so many females out there that need support, that don't understand what's happened to their body. So that was why I kind of went into the menopause coaching, so then I could help my clients understand when it comes to their cycle, how they should be training, what really works when it comes to trying to eat well, when it's losing weight, because otherwise it can be a very scary place. And sometimes you don't even realise who you are when you look in the mirror anymore. So that's why I kind of got into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you've seen the same, like coaching people across all sorts of ages. There's just a major discrepancy anyway in people like fully understanding the female body. Like, yes, the menopause stage, like you're not really taught anything about that at school whatsoever. Equally, you're also not taught much about how your female body is different to a man's and kind of how that's going to impact you like throughout your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with lots, if we talk about GPs too, the problem is the amount of people that I've come across that have got perimenopause symptoms, have gone to see a GP, and maybe they're, because the underage, so if you look at the guidelines, it will say like if you're under the age of 45, generally they'll try and do blood tests. But the problem with that, Bethany, is your hormones are so up and down that you could have a blood test and that blood test could say that you're fine. But what we're finding is they should be talking about, okay, what are your symptoms? Lots of females are getting turned away from GPs because they're doing these blood works and they're saying, well, actually, your hormones still look great, so it's not perimenopause. You're still having a period, so it's not perimenopause. That's actually wrong. You can still have a period in perimenopause. It could be longer or shorter. So lots of females are getting turned away and struggle with the symptoms because the GPs only do a basic training. They don't really touch much on the menopause. So there's lots that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you're saying, that I actually had a conversation about 2-3 days ago with a client who was saying the exact same thing. She was like, well, I went to the GP about 3 years ago thinking I had perimenopause, but they told me I was too young and to go away, basically. And she was like, but I've got all these symptoms and being completely wiped out by my period every month. She was like, what's going on? And, it's really disheartening. And I see it again, like across all ages, is women are so like put off actually going to the doctors to speak around like anything hormonal, health related, because they just feel like they're going to get brushed off or pushed to the side or told to come back later.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember speaking to one client and we actually had a phone chat and she was actually about 51 anyway. And that's generally roughly around the age where menopause can start. And she was turned away from her GP. And I said to her, right, we're going to have a chat. We're going to go. And I said, why don't you get a bit of paper? And this is what you're going to write down. And you're going to go in with those stats. And you are going to stand your ground and tell them, this is your body. You have a right to start HRT. At the end of the day, if you're over 45, they shouldn't even be questioning you. It's and the annoying thing is, Bethany, with these doctors, sometimes they'll go straight in and they're trying to scare, or do you know the risk? The risk of breast cancer is really scary, blah, blah, blah. And actually, when we look at the stats, if you're someone that doesn't exercise, your risk of breast cancer increases. If you're overweight, you've got a risk of breast cancer. If you drink 2 glasses of wine a night, you've got a risk of breast cancer. You need to be thinking about what are the benefits here. You've got like 200 estrogen receptors from every cell in your body. That just tells you how important estrogen is for every female out there.
100%. And being from that perspective of, I don't know if you've been through this yourself, are starting to recognize it coming through that like perimenopause stage. But again, like being in that perspective, like of having my own blood work, sort of being at perimenopause point, I think it's really hard for people that have never experienced like hormonal shifts to kind of really understand like the level it hits your body. It's not a case of you're a bit moody. It's a case of, for me, again, it will affect everyone like super differently. And mine was obviously blood work similar to being before menopause because of sort of my the position I was in, but it's like full body tiredness. It's not like you're a little bit tired and you can't be bothered. It's like your body aches. It's like extreme mood swings. It's not just something that is a little bit inconvenient. Like, it can be really debilitating. And when you're telling someone, you know, and when you're weighing that up with the risks, it is worth it for a lot of people because of how much life it really gives back.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, perimenopause can be really hard. I mean, if you look at the workplace, I know that the government are just trying to get in a new thing to let females work from home. You know, it's great that's coming through because there's so many females out there who think, oh, well, I can't take that job because I can't cope with it. And when we look at things like brain, you could be in the middle of an important meeting and you know that word, but you cannot access it. And then you might come across to your male colleagues, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about because she's just forgot that business meeting. It affects relationships. I mean, you could be married to the same man and all of a sudden you're having doubts about your relationship because your body's changing, your mood's changing, you've got no sex drive, you don't even recognize the person in the mirror anymore. And the sad thing is, so many females even think about suicide because they don't understand what's going through their body and they just think, I can't be dealing with this anymore. I don't want to live this life anymore. And actually, if there's more help out there, more menopause specialists, GPs, nurses to talk us through and go, do you know what? You're going through this because you're low in estrogen and you need some progesterone and even testosterone. That's not spoken about enough. Sometimes that can be the missing link because not only is that your sex drive, it can be your mood, your hair, your sleep, your skin. So, you know, it's important that we talk about all three of those hormones.
100%. And even just the actual conversation around, hey, these thoughts and feelings you might be having right now, like, I know they're really scary, but you're not alone going through them, and there's a reason and there's things we can do, is, I think, so reassuring for so many women when it leaves you questioning yourself and you feel crazy and you're just in this place of like utter confusion. And there's a big, you know, with a lot of women's health issues, there's just this big taboo around just talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, thank God for Davina McCall for setting the standard because without her, like if you think about our mothers, menopause wasn't spoke about. I mean, my mum never went on HRT and I wish she'd known about it because there are so many things that could have helped with her joints, her ligaments. Lots of females out there like, oh my God, you know, my knees are really aching. I'm like, that's because you're low in estrogen. And estrogen affects your stability of your link, your tendons, your joints. It affects your sleep. It affects your brain health. So, you know, we have our serotonin levels and our brain gets used to that. So when estrogen starts to kind of decline, you get more mood swings. You know, you can be more depressed and you think, God, what is wrong with me? Like, I think sometimes it's like living with Jekyll and Hyde because they never know what they're going to get. So I need to learn about menopause because if there's more men that understand what we go, they can then support as well.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, because it isn't saying that you're just going through by yourself, it's something that it impacts everybody around you. And again, if there's never any conversation, if nobody's ever never ever made a conversation, then everybody's just kind of left in the dark questioning what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think this is why we go around. So I worked with another lady called Amy, and we've kind of gone around a lot of Southampton offices, and we've done a menopause workshop to talk about, you know, this is what you expect. These are the symptoms. Yes, we talk a lot about HRT as well, but obviously we talk about the 3 pillars of health, and what I talk about that is HRT, nutrition, and the exercise, because HRT is valuable, but if you're not looking after yourself and not giving yourself the right nutrition, you're going to suffer. So it's really important that people realise, yes, HRT is super important, but there's other things that we can do to help ourselves too.
Especially when you're kind of experiencing the symptoms of perimenopause, it kind of equally are things that makes all of the things that you should be doing so much harder. You know, if you're someone that is struggling with sleep, for example, you're waking up throughout the night, you're tired all the time, you're achy, it makes it really hard to have that motivation and that want to actually make those changes. Again, like you just touched on, it's all so interlinked.
Oh my God, sleep is such a huge factor. Again, thanks to estrogen, I'll tell you what, that estrogen controls so much, it's ridiculous. It kind of, you don't produce as much melatonin. So you could go to sleep and then boom, you're awake at 2 a.m. in the morning and you've got no idea why and you cannot get back to sleep and you're thinking, this is ridiculous. I've still got to go up. I've got work. I've got children. And this is what females are up against. You could be a busy person. You could be a mum and you've got a high powered job and you've had about 5 hours sleep. You're still expected to go to work and do everything. Men don't have that. I mean, they do go through a menopause, which is called an androgen. You know, lose a bit of testosterone, but theirs doesn't happen to a lot later in life, and it's very gradual. Females, it's like boom. Hence why our symptoms are so much more severe. But magnesium is a huge part in sleep. So there's 7 different types of magnesium, but there's only 3 that we really need. There's a really good magnesium brand out there called, I think it's called Geeks, Magnesium Geeks. And there's 3 in there. One is for digestion. It's called magnesium citrate. There is another one called magnesium glycerate. That's for your sleep. So that kind of relaxes your GABA, like your neurotransmitters in the brain, to aid a peaceful night's sleep. And then the one for releasing energy is mylate. And that's been a game changer for me. I take 2 an hour before bed and I sleep like a baby now. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's these little changes that make such a difference. And it's also like, I think you touched on, obviously, you're almost breaking up with like the version of you that you used to know, and that mentally is really hard as well.
It is hard. And I think lots of people fear. I mean, I saw something on Instagram the other day, and this person basically painted quite a dark picture of menopause. Like, oh, you know, you're going to put on so much weight. You're never going to be that person again. But I like to think of it as you're changing into another era. You know what? You're leaving that one behind. But actually, when you get through the other side, you don't have any more periods anymore. There's no more cramps. You've got a new life. So I don't think it's something that people should fear. It's something we need to understand. We have tools in the toolbox to get through that chapter in our life, and we come out the other side, and you will come out the other side. And this is why it's so important that we've got the support, because no female should have to go through this by themselves. And the more the conversation's open, the more support you've got. Do you know what I mean? Because then you can say, well, actually, have you tried sleep? I found this really helpful. And then I give my advice to other clients and say, try this, as a game changer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to go through this alone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that there is support and there are things that you can do, it's not going to be that awful roller coaster that whole time. So obviously, aside from what we've already touched on, are there any other things that you think are kind of challenges that just aren't really kind of spoken about enough as women go through both this perimenopause and menopause period that are quite misunderstood?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand the what can happen, like with your UTIs and things like that. So you go through a bit of a change. So you start off on what we call an alkaline environment downstairs. That switches to very acidy. So what happens is that is the perfect environment for lots of bacteria. So loads of females suffer with UTIs, painful sex, things like that. And they don't realise that even if you have had breast cancer, you can use an estrogen depository because it doesn't actually get absorbed into the bloodstream. So there's no risk factors. And that seems to be quite a common occurrence with lots of females. They get lots of UTIs and they don't realise why. And that is, again, because your vagina wall hasn't got that estrogen it used to have. So that can be quite a common symptom that people don't realise is caused by perimenopause.
And I think that's something that obviously you can experience UTIs at any point. So I think it's saying that so many women would just go, well, it's just happening. It's not anything to link.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a huge one is obviously depression. And again, because you lose the brain, the estrogen in the brain, it can make you question how you look, how you feel. You can be crying, and you think, why am I crying? And sometimes you might not even know why you're crying. Do you know what I mean? And it is so hard. You might find that you've never struggled with weight before, and all of a sudden you've got like a muffin top around your stomach. And that's because normally when you've got the estrogen, it shifts the weight quite evenly. But when we lose that, we tend to build more of it up around our stomach. And that's because we become more what we call insulin resistant. So our bodies don't deal with carbohydrates as well as they used to. So that's a little bit of a shift. We've got more cortisone. We've got high levels of stress. We've got like 4 times more cortisone receptors in your stomach and the fat under the stomach than you do in the fat under your skin. So if a female is very highly stressed, they end up storing more fat. So I think the clear picture here is when you're perimenopausal, is how do we deal with our stress levels? You need to think about the way you eat. You need to be timing your carbs before and after training. Making sure you have plenty of fiber, because gut health is another super important topic to talk about. And this is where I come in. I will give everyone my knowledge and skills to say, right, this is what you've been doing, but you're not 20 anymore. You can't eat like a 20-year-old. You can't diet like a 20-year-old. You need to now learn to work with your hormones instead of against your hormones.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is so important throughout. I think it's that real key reminder that you always have to look after your health. Like, you know, even when we're still experiencing, even when we're not in perimenopause stage, like, it's what you do then also impact your periods, impact your cycles. And then again, as you get older, it's again just as important, and it's gonna really like elevate and improve that time period and transition for you. And I think it just really highlights you can never take your health for granted, and what you do for your body really does make a difference. It's never just like calories in and calories out and it'll be fine, or we can just get on and ignore all of the stresses and everything else going on. Like, it really does take its toll.
And you're right. I mean, the typical diet industry with females, like, you know, 1,200 calories, someone might put someone on, or there's a lot of talk about fasting. And when you look at studies for fasting, yes, it's really good for men. They have better brain health, they have better insulin sensitivity, they get really good results. But when you look at a female, and if you look at the studies, lots of fasting have been done on rats and men. Females don't do well with fasting, especially through perimenopause and menopause. It can actually elevate our cortisone level. It can increase our oxidation levels, so you're more stressed. And the one thing we need to think about is preserving as much muscle mass as possible. Well, fasting will eat into your muscle because it needs to elevate and make sure you've got your glucose levels. So it's detrimental. So that anyone's out there as a menopause coach saying you need to fast as a female, don't do it. It's a red flag. Your stress levels will be up here. You need to fuel your body, be kind to yourself, and think about your stress levels.
Yeah, and it really highlights how important it is to not treat your body like a man's. Like, just because that's what your partner might be doing, or that's what your partner's been told, or, you know, I've seen lots of clients compare themselves to their other halves. Your body is just so different, and you're going to feel different. Like, every single week, you're always going to be going through something different to your partner, and trying to follow the same plan and hoping to get the same results is always going to back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could go on the same diet as a man, as a female. They would lose 10 times more weight as you. It's just so unfair. They're just, you know, they've got more muscle mass. They've got a high metabolic rate. It's just sucks, doesn't it? But as a female, you've got to take into account your hormones, your time of your month. So, you know, when you're actually on your period, that's when your hormones are at the lowest. So you could go into that gym and you could be so weak, and you could be thinking, like 2 weeks ago, I was lifting 10 kilos. Now I can only do 5. So I always say to my clients, if you can track your cycle and work around your cycle, because I always say when you're on, be kind to yourself. You know, you're not going to be getting a PB. Just try and get some movement in. Your best time is mid-cycle. So your ovulatory phase is when you're going to peak. You've got high levels of estrogen, high levels of testosterone. So that is when, if you're a runner, you're going to get a PB on your run. If you're a strength like power lifter, go and do your 5x5 training. You're going to be an absolute powerhouse. You know, and when you go into like your luteal phase, like the week before you come back on your period, hormones starts, like progesterone starts to come up. So you might feel a little bit moody, a bit agitated, a bit tired. So you can still train. But again, it comes down to what I say all the time. Listen to your body. If you're exhausted after a training session, are you taking rest days in between? You know, are you fueling enough? Because I think if we all try and listen to our bodies a little bit more, then it becomes so much easier. Our bodies are so clever. It will give you a clue. If you've done too much, my God, you'll know about it the next day. So I just think really schedule your training around your cycle and just be kind to yourself.
And I think as women, the more you start to actually understand your body and learn and listen to your body, it is the most empowering thing you can ever do, because it just allows you to understand why you might be feeling certain ways, why certain things might be harder, and to just really be okay with listening to your body. I think a lot of women have spent so long ignoring their bodies because of different diets, all of the different things that have been pushed on us, from like Slimming World to keto to the Cambridge. We've been absolutely taught to ignore our hunger signals, to just push through, work harder. And actually, when you just give yourself permission to learn your body, it becomes so much easier and so much freeing. It doesn't have to feel like you're going up like this uphill battle all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. I mean, still females are still focused on scale weight. And clients, so don't worry about scale weight. I said, one carb you have, you retain 3 grams water. So you could have a bowl of spag bowl, and the next day you might have put on 3 pounds, and they're like, I've gained fat. I'm like, it's not fat. It's glycogen in your muscles. Focus on the good wins, like fitting into that dress you wanted to fit into, or I'm getting stronger now. I try and, with all clients, let's focus on building strength, feeling good within your body. Let's not try and get smaller. Let's take up space and become absolute powerhouses and enjoy that process. Nothing beats getting strong and feeling strong, not skinny. Let's just be a generation of powerhouses and throw the scales out. That's what I say.
100%, because so many women have already spent, most people start dieting from like 10 years old. We've already spent a very good part of our life obsessed around the scale weight. It's time to actually give yourself permission to actually celebrate the things that do matter, and they make you so much happier. Whenever I've seen people that are really, really scale obsessed, it often just backfires and makes that journey so much harder, because nothing ever quite feels good enough. And there's never going to be a scale weight where you're like, oh, yeah, this is the weight everything makes sense, this is the weight I'm happy at. You're always going to be trying to push for other areas if you've not changed anything else. If all you focus on is the scale weight and you've ignored everything else going on, like we've spoken about, like your stress, your food, your sleep, you're still going to be just as unhealthy and unhappy and burnt out.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're right. I mean, at the end of the day, we know, like, if you look at things like undereating is just as detrimental as it's overeating. Your body is going to be highly stressed, exhausted and tired, and that also makes weight loss difficult. So, and it's so, the amount of people I've worked with, Bethany, and I'm like, right, just track for a few days, just so I can get a gist of what's going on. And I'm like, we need to put your calories up. And they're like, what? You want me to eat more? And the sheer panic in their faces. And then we've got 2 weeks down the line, they're like, oh my God, I've lost weight. I don't understand. I'm like, that's because you were under fuel in your body was stressed. Now we've got more energy coming in. The body's like, oh, okay, it's all right. We've got some energy. We can work more now. And I think, like you say, it's just that error of that is what a female has been jumped into. You need to eat less, train hard, and be focused on the scale weight, and it just needs to change.
Yeah, and people don't realize just how much your body down regulates when you're not eating enough. I remember when I was going through a period of being really restricted around food, like every part of my body was just minimizing how much energy I would expend. I had little things like I would sit on my hands, and it wouldn't be subconscious, but you're not going to fidget as much because every bit of your body just wants you to chill out and slow down. It's going to feel like so much effort to walk to the shop, for example, because you don't have the energy to make those little decisions. And so your body is just like, nope, we just need to calm down, slow down, and everything just down regulates on you.
That's the thing, like what people don't realize is when they go on severe calorie restriction, your body is very smart. So yes, it will slow down all your body processes, but what it tends to do, it knows that muscle takes energy to live. So it will go, right, we don't need that then. So it'll just burn it off. So when you go back to a normal way of eating, straight away, you've lost that muscle tissue. That's going to hit your metabolism. You're going to gain that fat back, and you're going to feel like you've got more body fat because you've lost that mean muscle mass. So it's not going to work. We need to be in the nowadays thinking about muscle is longevity. We need to stop the low calorie diets and build as much muscle so we can live a long, healthy life.
Yeah, and setting ourselves up for sort of sustainable habits that actually feel enjoyable, because otherwise we're just going on this constant sort of pendulum of restricting ourselves and then binging and then going in this constant cycle of losing and gaining weight, and just either way you're miserably unhappy. Life is too short to be spending that much time sort of unhappy, restricted, trained, focused on food. Like, it gets to be so much better than that.
Absolutely. And you've got to remember, like, if you've got a high level of muscle mass, you need more calories to retain. So, there's nothing wrong with going out and having some chips, your steak and things like that. It's about an 80-20 rule. I always say to clients, there's no such thing as a bad food. It's moderation. Like, I try and make sure I eat mostly whole foods because we know how good that is for our body. But if I want a bag of buttons, I'm going to get a bag of buttons.
Yeah, and when you know as well that you don't have to stress the small stuff like that, like a bag of chocolate buttons isn't going to be the end of the world, that automatically takes off so much pressure, and all it is a bag of buttons. Whereas when you're in that place where you're constantly sort of struggling around food, is we build up so much pressure on ourselves that bag of buttons feels detrimental, and you feel that you've ruined it all.
Absolutely. And I always say to clients, the one important thing is you should never do to yourself, think, oh, I've had some chocolate, well, that's it, I've wrecked it now, so I'm just going to go on a massive binge. I said, do you know what? The important thing is what happens next. It's okay to have that. As long as you're still staying on track, There's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself, and there should be no punishment. You should never ever feel guilt for enjoying yourself, because that's what we want to work on. We want to be working on having a good relationship with food. Food is fuel. End of.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you think so many women feel so unprepared for this stage?
I think a lot of it is because people aren't educated. I think when we look at school, we do sex education, we do periods, but there was no training in schools to prepare any female for perimenopause to menopause, which is shocking, thinking it's going to happen to every single female out there. So I think when I had a menopause workshop in London a few years ago, it is something that they are looking to bring into schools, because I think we need to have prepared, so that you're not just going to wake up and think, oh my God, am I losing my mind? What's happening to me? If you know the symptoms, you could be more switched on to go, actually, I've been tracking my cycle, I'm getting more symptoms, I need to go and speak to GP about it. So yeah, I think that's where it is. I think females have been let down. We don't have enough education out there.
100%. Like, it is something that should be normalized from a young age, because even when you're obviously not going through it yourself, your parents are going to be going through it not long after, and even just knowing why your mum might be a little bit different is so important, and something that should be so normalized for everybody, instead of you all of a sudden having it sprung on you and feeling like everything is kind of going wrong all of a sudden. Like, and because it's not just that one day where everything changes and all of a sudden you're menopausal. There is a whole lead up to it of all of these symptoms being introduced, where you need to understand what's going on for you.
And that's the thing. And I think in the textbooks, you're looking like perimenopause can last anywhere between 4 and 8 years.
Yeah.
I think it needs to change, because like in the GP, it's like, right, 45 is a magic number, but that's not necessarily true. I know so many females that are on for you, your people are on it like 37, 38. So I think they need to get rid of that 45 stigma as a number it happens, because it can happen at any age. It really can. And I think that's what GPs need to be aware of. They need to listen, and they're not good at listening to people. They need to listen to what their symptoms are, instead of brushing us under the carpet because we're not 45. I think female, if you're in tune with your body and your cycle, you know those symptoms, and it's so important to go and speak to someone. Don't sit there and suffer in silence.
Yeah, and it's exactly like you said, a big part of what I have to do with a lot of my clients is just helping them know what to say when they go into the doctors, because we've been so put off going, because we either we've had a negative experience or we've heard about someone else's negative experience, and we know that it's going to be a 15-minute appointment, and we're worried about kind of how it's going to go. It's so, there's so much pressure around that one appointment as well, especially when it takes a month a lot of the time to get a doctor's appointment. You need that appointment really badly when you're struggling with perimenopause, and especially if you're someone that is quite, hit with the symptoms and debilitated to it. It doesn't, personally for me, when I went down the route of getting the HRT, I didn't feel like I had a month to wait. I was like, this is a point for me where I'm going at breaking point. I need the support right now, really. I need someone to take me seriously right now and listen to me. And so a big part of what I have to do as well is going, right, let's get everything together. Let's make sure you're prepared so that you feel as confident as possible, and you can go in and know what you're asking for, and feel like feel empowered going into there, not scared.
Yeah, and that's right, Bethany. I think lots of females, I always say to them, the worst thing you can go into is subject number one and say, I just don't feel myself, because they go, oh, you're depressed, need some antidepressants. I say, leave that to the bottom of your list. Talk about your cycle, talk about your feelings, because so many GPs will just go, oh, you just need some antidepressants, that's why you're feeling like that. And it's like, actually, no, it's because estrogen is coming away from every single cell in my body.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard. I mean, like, you're not that, and it knocks your confidence. I mean, when you're in your 20s, you are this confident female and you just think you know it all. And all of a sudden, all I can explain it to you is you lose your spark. And that's what I can say to you. You kind of question everything. You become more anxious. You are not that sassy, confident person anymore. And I think when you get that HRT back in you and you start to feel like you again, especially with the testosterone I've had as well, you almost claiming yourself again, thinking, right, okay, I feel so much better now. And it's so hard for a female. They almost feel like they're failing if they ask for HRT. And I'm like, right, if you were diabetic, you need insulin. This is the same thing. This is hormone depletion. You need this. You need those hormones to feel like you again. Don't sit there and suffer and feel like this, because there's no shame in admitting you need some help and talking to someone about your hormones.
Yeah, and comparing for me before and after HRT, it's exactly like you said. I used to feel like there was just a giant cloud, and it didn't matter what someone was saying to me. I remember my partner being like, look at all these good things that have happened, and me being like, just feeling so disconnected, being like, on the surface, I recognize your words, but they are not hitting the emotions. Like, it just felt like this giant cloud, and it does just leave you feeling like so disconnected from yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember being up in London this year in March. We went to see a concert, and I hadn't started any testosterone, but my moods were horrendous. Like, I even questioned why my husband was with me. I was like, why are you with me? He's like, what are you on about? And you can't explain it to someone, but I could have cried at any point in time. You know, my sex drive was a massive thing. It'd gone away. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, my hair, my skin. And then when I got my results back for my testosterone, and they were like shocking, they were like so rock bottom. It does take a good 6 to 8 weeks for it to like build up in your system. But then like my skin was coming back, my sleep was impressed, it came back. My sex drive, oh my goodness, like I actually had a sex drive.
Yeah.
And for someone that's married and 42, that is a huge factor. Like, I shouldn't be having those feelings at that age. So, and this is why, like we talked about, that they say that if you're on HRT and you're on it for like 3 months, but you still feel like you're missing that strength, that stamina, that sex drive, that clarity, sometimes testosterone can just be the missing piece.
I think what you touched on there is a really big impact as well that is probably forgotten about, is just how much it can take a toll on relationships. Like, you know, I remember feeling the exact same, like guilty, that all of a sudden every month there would be a completely different version of me that couldn't stop crying and wasn't very nice to be around, and I couldn't put it into words, and I didn't know how long it was going to go on for, you know, coming from, and then having that HRT that just all of a sudden was like, that all makes a lot more sense. But for, you know, when you're in a relationship, and it's so hard to explain to someone that has never experienced anything like their hormones shifting like that, very likely, and when you barely understand why you're feeling certain ways and certain emotions, and like you said, all of a sudden you want to cry, and you just haven't got the words to be able to explain to your partner like what's going on for you.
That's the thing. I mean, unfortunately, so many marriages end in divorce because maybe the females don't realise they're actually going through perimenopause, or the men are too scared to say, I think you're going for the perimenopause, in case the female just rips their head off their shoulder. So I think that's why education is key, because then, as I knew, I thought there is something wrong with me. I think my hormones are low because I've done the training. I was unable to pick up on those clues that I was giving myself to get the help. And now, like, even my husband would say, he's like, you're such a different person now. Like, you're more confident. You've got that sparkle back. So it is a real game changer. It really is.
And I think that also touches on what you've just said there, is when you're really in tune, like, I don't know if you'll feel the same, I can notice when my hormones are off. I can feel it in myself when something doesn't feel right anymore. And when you start listening to your body and recognizing all of those different stages that you go through, like, you do start to pick up on yourself when something is off. I can, like, you know, I've spent about 2.5 years doing sort of private blood work, and I would normally, by the end of that, know what my bloods would be before they were back, because I could feel it in myself and what my energy was like, what my mood was like. And yeah, you just get so much more in tune with your body.
Yeah, no, you do. You absolutely do. And this is why I say with clients, like, when it comes to their training, if you're feeling exhausted after training, you need to look at that schedule. Are you doing too much? You know, are you doing too much heavy work and you're not having like a deload week and things like that? How many rest days are we taking? Are you not having enough carbs pre and post workout? Because so many females that might be out there that could be training, but if they're not fueling their training before and after, they're going to struggle. They're going to feel tired. Their muscles aren't going to repair efficiently, giving the right energy to prepare. So you are right. It's really important that you do listen to your body and go, oh, okay, actually, I didn't have carbs, so that's why I'm feeling like this. So I need to have carbs with my training.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being able to know what your body needs, so that you're not just at the whim of having to accept feeling completely out of it and completely wiped out. What in particular sort of mindset and lifestyle shifts have you seen to be the most impactful? I know we've already touched on a couple, but which ones would you always be like, right, here's your protocol?
Okay, so I would say if we're talking food and training, always prioritise your protein. You need at least 30 grams breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then 25 grams of your snacks. Making sure you're getting your fibre every day, so 25 grams of fibre. And when it comes to your carbs, there's nothing wrong with carbs, making sure you're having complex carbs. But I always say to people it's about timing, before and after training. And as the day kind of comes down and you're less active, tailor those carbs down, because your metabolism slows down as the day kind of comes to a grind. You don't need loads of carbs and your glycogen source, you're not going to use them. So then the evening meal, have more fats, have more proteins, and have more fibrous carbs, lots of veggies and stuff. When it comes to your training, Bethany, prioritise your strength training. We need to be thinking about muscle mass, bone density. So we need to be making sure we're given that stimulus to grow our muscles. Walking, really get your 10,000 in. And when it comes to training, you'll hear two types of thing. You'll hear HIIT and SIT. SIT is like sprint interval training, okay? It's really, really impactful for burning stubborn tummy fat. Yes, it does raise your cortisone levels, but they will come back down. And there's nothing wrong with doing 2 to 3 sessions of that a week. Depending, if you're like an endurance athlete and you've got quite a heavy training schedule, then I would maybe wait till your off season, because that's obviously going to stress your body out. And being kind to yourself, making sure you set a bedtime routine, making sure that you are doing some form of yoga or journaling to get those thoughts out of your head so you can aid a peaceful sleep. And just be kind to yourself. Take those days. If you're really exhausted, don't feel guilty about not going to the gym. Just go for a nice walk out in nature, put your favourite track on, really start to look after yourself.
Exactly. And I think it really highlights one thing I always think with my own health journey is what you do now doesn't just impact what you're doing through what perimenopause will be like or what menopause will be like, especially when it comes to strength training and how we fuel ourselves. It's also the type of life you live on the other side. Like when you're 80, it's like how much independence you're going to have, like always taking it back to like that bigger picture of just how much this will impact like every little section of your life.
That's the thing. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when we do our workshops, we say to people that are even like in their 20s and 30s, you might be sat there thinking, this doesn't worry me right now. So, but the stuff we do now would impact whether you are still rocking it at 60 and 70 and hiking that mountain and going on those holidays, or whether you're going to sit in that chair because you've got no muscle mass and bone density and you're going to be a crippled old lady. You need to act now. And that's why I think so many females need to think about preserve strength training. Don't do so much cardio all the time. Really, really hit that, build that body, and you are going to live a better life as you age.
So how do you find this building awareness, these conversations, understanding your health and what's going on for you? How can this start to support women? What does it change throughout that transition period?
I think it just makes female realise, because I think loads of females have all panicked about strength training, they're going to get bulky. And I think I blame a lot of that with when you see females that are competing and stuff like that, a lot of that is steroids, the look they are. And that's what I say to them. I said, look, you are not going to look like this. I said, you are going to be athletic, you're going to look great, you're going to feel great, it's going to help with your weight loss journey, it's going to help with your moods. And I think trying to talk females through that and keep the conversation going, like talk to your grandparents, talk to your friends, talk to your children about it. And I think more and more females now, I mean, I hear it now and about, if I'm in the gym and I'm in the changing room and someone talks about it, I can't help but kind of tell them, well, I've got fireworks going on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
I have no idea what just happened there. But join the conversation, because I'm so passionate about going, well, actually, do you know if you do this, that's going to help you get like that? Because I just feel like it's my mission in life to just try and help as many females feel like badasses through this their life, and they don't have to feel like they're on their own and they're going for it, because it can be a really scary place that you kind of lose yourself temporarily. And that's why I think it's really important that we keep talking about this, because the more we talk about it, the more people realise that they're not on their own and it's not something to be scared of. You embrace it, you've got the tools to get through it, and you will come out the other side.
Amazing. And that's exactly why it is just so important to have these conversations, because again, you never know at what point of your life it's going to come into your life, whether it is personally, whether it is someone you love, whether it is a partner. You never know at what point it's going to start to impact you, whether it's menopause or another stage throughout sort of, just understanding women's health, because we go through so many different transitions, and once you can understand that, it just allows you to look after yourself so much more.
Absolutely. And that's right. The key is, Bethany, is to look after yourself. You know, you really are what you eat. So if you're going to eat a rubbish diet, you're going to feel rubbish. So you need to prioritize yourself. You need to put a little time into yourself. I hear it so many times, I haven't got the time. And I'm like, you're telling me you haven't got 30 minutes during the day? I guarantee you spend 30 minutes scrolling through TikTok, right? 30 minutes is all you need. Just pick up some dumbbells, full body workout, and start investing in your health.
And at the end of the day, your health is the only thing you have. Like, when that goes, you have nothing else. You will not be able to work. You're not going to be able to look after everybody else. Like, if you haven't looked after yourself first and foremost, you know, I can say firsthand, like, when my estrogen was really low before HRT, it was impacting like every single bit. Like, I was struggling to work. I was forgetting people's names that I was friends with. Like, so if you don't prioritize your health, you're not going to be able to do all those other things that are so important to you.
Absolutely. Like I've always said, you know, if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you got in the bank. If you can't generally get out of bed or go for a walk and feeling, I think you take it for granted, just being able to get your shoes on, get out of bed. We take all the things our body does every day, our heart to beat, our muscles regenerate, all those things that we don't have a minute thought about it. Our bodies are amazing. So I always think, you know, put something into your body, you know, start thinking about how amazing your bodies are every day, and put some time and effort into your health. Absolutely.
Because there's definitely been, you know, a big shift in Instagram. It used to be very much sort of like hustle culture and work a lot, and I still think so many women carry that message that they have to do it all. They have to be the person that keeps the house all together. They have to be working all the time as well. They've got their family to care about, and somewhere along the way you just lose that, like, it's actually okay to look after yourself. You actually love to, and you need to.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the amount of females, mums that I work with, typical, you know, it's like, right, husband, house, dog, kids, and they've gone boom, boom, boom. Like, you've put yourself at the bottom of the list. I said, what would your family do without you? You know, you need to. The thing is, when you set the standard and you start introducing exercise and you're eating well, your kids see that. Or setting them up for a good start in life. They're seeing that exercise can be fun. They're seeing that healthy eating doesn't have to be boring. So it does kind of follow down the line. So I think it's really important that you encourage your whole family to get fit and make sure you're eating a good diet as children, because then they're going to grow up to be healthy children as well, and adults.
The thing I always adore and love is when someone leans into this and they fully realize that they deserve it and they need to make these changes, and they start to see that impact of being stronger, of having more energy, of being happier. Like, every little area of their life improves. Like, there is not one bit of your life that does not get incredibly, like, so much better.
And that's the thing, it becomes addictive, doesn't it? And that's what it is. It then becomes their habit. They fall in love with the process, and you just want to keep going because you just feel like a badass. You're like, and I always say to my clients, no one ever regrets a workout. You might like drag your backside to that gym, because I always say you go into the gym feeling like, oh, I don't want to be here, but you come out a different person, and that's the feeling you need to remember.
Yeah, and that's what your family wants for you. They want to see you that happy as well. They want to see you thriving. So it's like they always say, you've got to put on your own mask before you put on everyone else's, because it will benefit everybody else, and you can't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for joining today. I know this is going to be a really educational episode for so many people, so many women, hopefully whatever stage of life they're going through, because again, we're all going to go through menopause at some point, and it's really important that we have these conversations.
Absolutely. And like I say, anyone can inbox me for questions, that's fine. But yeah, it's keeping the conversation and topic going.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Bethany. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Amazing. Bye everyone, we'll see you in the next episode.
See you.